advance this application.
That was a good segue.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I have to apologize just before I start. I realized I didn't bring the dongle to do a PowerPoint presentation. Is there a connection?
I'm not sure. We can ask for some quick assistance on this, but typically we're taking PowerPoints in advance and loading them up for you.
That'd be great. Would there be patience to allow me to move it over to this computer here?
As I don't steer that equipment, I'll look to our clerks for advice.
I can do it with a stick, or I can...
Stick is right.
Stick right.
You just have to pull out.
Thanks. My apologies for that. Yeah, that's okay. I won't ask you to leave just yet.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Yes. Thank you very much for that.
Great, no problem.
My name is Richard Wanbon, and I live at 4153 Spring Ridge Crescent, which is in Saanich, and I'm representing Saanich Tennis Club as the president. First of all, thank you for letting me speak at the committee as a whole meeting, and also for receiving the letter that I sent in earlier. I will skip the first slide here, as I've already introduced our club and what our club represents. But there are some key points that are relevant to those who are new today that I want to add. We've been around for 45 years. Our site that we operate on is BC Hydro Land, leased to Saanich Parks. We've been there since 1991, and the current lease goes till 2021, we believe. Saanich Tennis Club and Saanich Parks is invested in this property for 25 years. So significant infrastructure and services at that site. We maintain public hours and we've had no complaints. So just speaking to the expansion relocation, to answer the earlier question, the goal would be 4 courts. However, we didn't know whether we could do 4 courts or whether it would have to be 3 courts based on the geometry of the land, the trees and so forth. This process, this knowledge of this BC Hydro proposal came to us in July of this year, so we haven't had sufficient time to bring forth any sufficient plans to put things in proper context. I would like to add, though, that not only would we like 4 courts for our club, but we'd also like it for the community of Saanich. As I mentioned earlier, there's only one site in Saanich that has more than 2 tennis courts, and that was to Saanich East at Lambert Park. So the goal would be a shared community society arrangement. So I'll just speak to the current site here, hoping you can see the cursor there with the satellite image. So this is the land we're talking about, and I just want to point to the parking area here. So this is actually our overflow parking right now, and you can see that there's probably room for about 5 or 6 vehicles here. The proposal of having the pathway through leaves only enough room for probably 2 cars, so right there we'd be less than half of the number of cars in that designated area. My apologies. If you also look down the side here, and I'm going to show you another picture in a minute, but you can see how the cars are parked there straight in off the road as opposed to parallel parked, and the current proposal is for parallel parking, which again I think would reduce parking in that stretch by about 50%. So the overall reduction of parking is probably 50%, not an additional parking allowance. So you can see the land where we had hoped to expand to, and this is another view of what it would look like, or what it looks like. It's a nice December cold morning. These were the plans that WSP provided to us, and I want to thank them. They've worked hard to look at our concerns, and they did these drawings for us, and it's much appreciated. These are outdated. I've since seen the new plan, and it does show this tennis court's moved up and this path moves in a more of a direct line with a gate approximately here. So there would be room for a third court. However, there would be no parking there. And again, the parking down the side would be lost. And as mentioned earlier, there would not be allowance for 4 tennis courts and a path without fairly drastic measures. So I want to kind of shift away from the expansion talk and just talk as a resident of Saanich about the parking at Bryden Park. And so you can see here X marks the spot of where this gate is that Saanich Tennis Club has a key to allow for this overflow parking. And I've talked about the parking down the side already, and there's a visual, again, a cold December morning, not many people using the park. This is the area where the path would go through, so a more direct line is reasonable. But looking overall at Bryden Park, you can see up here, this is where you saw the photos of Viewmont. There's 3 other access points to Bryden Park. At this corner here, and sorry I'm forgetting the street names, there's a roundabout here. Again, there's no parking there, and then there's a dead end. So all 4 accesses really do not have proper parking for Bryden Park. And Bryden Park does have music in the park. There's a number of other events. There's fitness classes, and of course there's a kids park and ball hockey and other activities. So stepping outside my role as the Saanich Tennis Club president and looking at this from a community perspective, I'd just like to throw out an idea that would not be helpful for Saanich Tennis Club, but would be very helpful for Saanich. And that's to not have a tennis court in this area, but to allow the pathway through for BC Hydro, which I think is a very legitimate and good concern for the community to have that, but also to have an expanded parking area to the north of the courts. That would provide proper parking for the park. That would be a benefit to the community. It would not help Saanich Tennis Club. However, we ideally would like to look for a 4-court plan anyways. So if we were to relocate, and this is stepping a little bit outside of this proposal, but it's just showing what the trickle-down effect would be with the current proposal. If we were to do that, we would be Saanich Tennis Club and Saanich Parks would be somewhat walking away from some of the current investments. We could certainly look to relocate where we could have a 4-court facility. We would need support from Saanich to be able to do that and to operate with a community club and public hours on that site as well. Relocating would be more costly to us as well, and again, there's investments in the current area. If the other advantages to that is there's currently a clubhouse with some water lines and sewage, so there would be the opportunity if Saanich Tennis Club were to relocate, there'd be an opportunity for a public washroom facility, another kind of infrastructure to support the park. It's something that we already do for music in the park. We do provide our washroom facilities for that event. So the recommendation and request that I would have for this specific proposal has already been answered by a WSP tonight, and that's to make sure the access path does move as far north as possible, and they've done that. And then the future strategic plannings I've just highlighted there with the request to acknowledge the trickle-down effect to our club and to an investment by Saanich Parks as well. Last points I'd just like to say is simply, despite the concerns that I've raised, Saanich Tennis Club members do feel strongly that it's a good idea to have a secondary access point for BC Hydro for the event of a disaster. And just like to finally say thank you very much to Saanich Parks, Saanich Planning, WSP, as all of them have spent significant time with me in answering our concerns and trying to think through this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Marcel Lazaro. I live on 828 Fairview Road, just on the map there, the last house on the dead end on the south side of BC Hydro. When I saw this proposal, I was a little upset because bought a house close to 10 years ago, and the beautiful park, quiet, and all of a sudden now I'm gonna have a huge yard in my backyard. One of the concerns they brought up, my main concern was a huge parking lot they're gonna be building next door, and with the water and rains and stuff, the elevations they're gonna be, how it's gonna affect my house and the neighbors' houses around the neighborhood. Another thing too, like the previous speaker was showing on the TV there, with the line that they're proposing to go across, if they follow my line of the backyard of my house all the way across, they're gonna be about within 10-15 feet from the playground of the Brazen Park. Saanich spent millions of dollars, I think, or thousands of dollars, I should say, redoing that park. It used to be just a hayfield years ago. We used to walk through there all the time. Tons of money was spent on that. Now everything is going to be thrown away. It's a concern for a taxpayer to see that, my own stand, I didn't know that BC Hydro on the land, that there was a Saanich parkland. So it's a lease. I would like to, if they develop the lease, they develop the development to the Centennial path and leave the path there for people, because every day when I'm washing dishes or making supper, whatever, the family having supper, we see tons of people walking through there, cyclists, and it's a very well-used path, that it's well used, and people like it. It's a shortcut for cyclists going, because we always encourage people to cycle here and there. It's a shortcut from Saanich Road, West Saanich Road, all the way to Wilkinson, pretty much. It's a beautiful path. The whole Saanich Park, it's a gorgeous park to be walking, and a big chunk of it is going to be taken away. And not to say the waste of land is going to be behind the townhouses and the southeast corner, because the pathway is just going to die in the backyard of on the fence line. What's going to happen to that land? Because it's houses one side, townhouses on the other, condominium one side, the path is in the middle, no place to go, is a dead end. So what's going to happen there? So it's just going to attract more vandalism. People, lately we be, looking, homeless people hanging around the park. We always see them. Once in a while, a lot of times I go for a walk with my wife in the evenings and stuff, and you see people parking in the bushes, tenting and stuff, and they're not doing anything wrong. We don't bother them, because after a while they need a place to stay, but we don't have to make more hiding spot for people to hide in the neighborhood. So I just hope that when you guys see this proposal, you consider the park itself. It's going to be a huge transformation for the area. A lot of money was invested on this, and now it's just going to be thrown out the door. So thank you very much.
Can I just ask you to come back to the microphone a little bit? You spoke a lot, and I'm trying to take notes on this. Could you just summarize your concerns for us?
My concern is that this is going to remove the trail that's there now, the Centennial Trail.
Yes.
Okay, and the elevation, especially for, I don't know the elevation it's going to be for the final construction site, and the water disposal from rain and stuff, because it's all trucks and stuff that work there, the backhoes and stuff, and so it's not going to be a gravel parking lot. It's going to be a concrete parking lot, and how they're going to dispose the water out of the huge area. I know they do it now, but now they're going to be right next door to me. So it's a concern that, and I have a crawl space in my house, which is below average. And right now when I'm sitting on my patio looking out, I believe the other side, because the Centennial Square is quite high, about 6-7 feet high, and then there's a berm again going down, and I believe it's almost the same elevation. I never really bothered to look, but it's one of those, what's going to happen in here with the water and sewage and all that stuff. So, okay.
Okay. All right, thanks so much. We'll try to have those questions addressed.
Thanks.
Next speaker, please.
Helen Fennell, and I live in that little rectangular condo at the southeast corner of the Hydro right-of-way, 4394 West Saanich Road. I actually never even thought, when I looked at all these pictures, that Centennial walkway, the pathway would be gone, and I don't know whether in fact it is, it's not. Okay, perfect, well that helps, because I can't even imagine it. We've already got all kinds of signage signs there saying it, and I thought, whoa, that's kind of inviolate. I just don't understand in this, I'm not a municipally wise person. I'm not sure what auditory, visual, and other kind of impact there will be on those of us who live right at that southeast corner of the hydro, that big land, you know, there's your picture, but this new building here and this land back here. I don't understand what M2 means, wholesale warehouse office, okay, it's not that bad. And P2, which means utility. And I'm just concerned, I don't understand enough about what that could mean visually and auditorially, etc., for those of us who do live nearby, and including the people on Ferry Lane. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening, I'm Victoria Shannon. I'm president of Hans Brown Investments. We own and operate Royal Oak Shopping Centre at 4410 West Saanich Road. Just a couple of comments and concerns. I just would like to go back to the pathway, and maybe I'm confused, but I understood from the last meeting that, and perhaps what Councillor Sanders was getting at, was the connection between the Lee property, where they're talking about the right-of-way, through the north end of their property, and I believe from the last meeting that council's suggestion was that BC Hydro approach us about completing that trail through our property, and there has been zero contact there. My other concern is the four-way stop on the road, which is actually on our property, over which BC Hydro has an easement for their loan access there, so a four-way stop would mean new traffic flow on our property, and we're unaware of that proposal or what that would entail, as well as details on the improved pedestrian connection between the BC Hydro property and Royal Oak Shopping Centre. What does that mean on our side of things? We'd like to see what that looks like, and what the expectation is on our part to make it just as friendly once the people leave BC Hydro and come onto our property there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Please come forward.
Hello, my name is Ann Knudsen, and I live in the condo for 4394 West Saanich Road. And I've got the same questions really. I'm not sure what it means, the utility and recreation open space, and the new building, how tall will it be? How many floors will it be? I'm concerned about the noise and whether that pathway will disappear.
Could you please address your comments towards me? I'll take your questions and then we'll get some answers for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff. My name is Paul Whitworth. I live at 4548 Viewmont Avenue, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Royal Oak Community Association, in whose territory the proposal is cited. Since BC Hydro is a large provincial crown corporation, I would say that the Community Association's role has been strictly to ensure that the general public in the neighborhood were informed. We have twice leafleted the area. I personally did down Viewmont Avenue into Bryden Park. I also went along Viaduct East as far as Lindsay, including Remy Place. My wife, I believe, on the same day, she was working on the opposite side of the proposed property, going down Ferry and Man Avenue. So we were sure that the neighbours within reasonable distance, which is that we actually leaflet far beyond what the municipal bylaws call for. So we do know that we did get the message out there. The Since we've leafleted the area twice, we did not receive any inquiries and no feedback. So I could say that in the, I guess, essentially the Community Association takes a neutral stance. We have no complaints to pass along, therefore we have no further comment to make on the proposal. It is now between BC Hydro and yourselves at Council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward. Calling for a second time, any other members of the public who wish to speak? Calling for a third time? I think we'll close that public input period. I think I'd like to ask the applicant to come back to the microphone just to answer a few questions. There was a question that was posed earlier about what these zones are. M2 is wholesale, warehouse and office. P2 is utility. P4 is recreation, open space. I think the people that came to speak were asking, I think, for more description of what's going to be in these areas. And I know that's largely in the report in front of us, but I'm wondering if, so we need to password again. I'm wondering if it just, for their benefit, you could describe that for them and give them some assurance of what is going to be built is going to.
Well, maybe just in layman terms, I think to address those concerns is the function of the yard is not going to change. Right now, the existing...
Do you mind addressing council? Thank you.
So the function of the facility is not going to change. Presently, there's the two buildings there with a fully functioning yard. Those two buildings are going to be consolidated, shifted to the north end of the property, and the yard is still going to function as it presently is. The zoning is a result of the discharge of the land use contract.
All right, thank you. There was another question about drainage during and after construction.
I'm just going to pull up the slides here.
Sure, go ahead.
To address that point, I think that point started off with concerns with the Centennial Trail. That is going to remain and will not be impacted by this development.
And what about runoff in terms of turning gravel areas into concreted areas?
There's an extensive stormwater management plan that we're incorporating into this project. There's been lots of back and forth with engineering on that very topic.
Okay. There was another question about the actual height of the building. I think it's been expressed in stories. But...
2 stories.
Okay. Councillor Plant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if it was the representative from Hansbron was phrased in the form of questions, but if once you're complete your questions that you have from the public input, I'd like to just ask to comment. If the clarification of the four-way stop would approximately be where the Tim Hortons is that correct?
It's, yeah, the intersection would not change. It's as existing.
But a four-way stop there. Right?
That's what we're proposing to just improve safety by design from BC Hydro standpoint.
Okay, so the question I suppose that I would ask is,
I think ask it at the time, please. Go ahead.
yeah, is did you consult with Hansbron about the introduction of a four-way stop there?
Early on in the process, before we had the pathway at the Tri-Eagle site, we originally were contemplating a road widening scheme for that property. At that point, in that plan, the four-way stop was proposed. So those plans were, that idea was rejected, and we just went back to what's there presently. And I believe there is 2 stop signs, if I'm not mistaken.
There is a
Existing.
implied stop coming out of the BC Hydro property, and there's an implied stop coming out of the Tim Hortons.
Yes.
But I don't believe the access that I would describe as west and east, there's no signage right now. It's a pretty dangerous
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's a stop sign on the south end, so for BC Hydro trucks leaving.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's a stop sign for traffic that is in the Royal Oak Shopping Center going east.
I don't think
So before in line with the Tim Hortons.
I don't think so.
No, I could be
So,
mistaken.
but what is is suggested though, is to put actually 2 more signs there for people coming into the development and people leaving via the rear. And it's, when I hear the representative from Hansbron saying they don't feel they've been consulted, it makes my ears prick up. And you're saying it was, but they're saying it's not, and so that's a challenge for me as a councillor to support going forward when there's a sense of, we haven't talked about this. So I don't know if you can address that, or if you feel that the initial consult should be something that Hansbron should remember.
The initial consult with Hansbron was, it impacted the traffic flow. So that was extensive set of plans. We had meetings with Hansbron and the Tri-Eagle property owner. At that time, we proposed the 4-way stops as safety by design, knowing also that we have a pedestrian pathway linking West Saanich Road, as well as a future pedestrian pathway at the north end of our site for future access, pedestrian access from Viewmont to Royal Oak Shopping Center.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I have a question therefore back to staff. Is it appropriate for this development proposal or the proposal in front of us to assume the addition of these stop signs, given that they're going to be on Hansbron's property?
Through the chair, I believe this is a civil matter between the 2 parties. BC Hydro has an easement for access purposes and other things, so I don't think the municipality needs to get involved in this. It's a private matter between the 2 property owners that they need to sit down and resolve.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councillor Sanders?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comments were really similar to Councillor Plant's, but about the pathway, because the representative from Hansbrook also said there'd be no contact about the pathway. So I'm quite confused whether it be the 4-way stop or the pathway. There doesn't seem to be that contact.
The pathway is within the Tri-Eagle property. The pathway, the east pathway, if you will, is on the Tri-Eagle property.
And so, as the representative referenced to myself, I witnessed this pathway that was going towards the west, that the discussion was on. That's what she was referencing.
The pathway on the west is within BC Hydro's property. Future pathway on the west side. There's 2 pathways, the one on the west and then the one on the east.
Okay, there is no proposed pathway to the shopping center from this site to the west.
From this side to the, I don't quite.
I think our engineer would like to chime in.
I would like to clarify this. I have
Microphone, please. Thank you, Jack.
See this plan? Microphone.
Yeah, it's
Okay, I have this plan here.
page
Okay,
4.
It shows the right of way that the municipality is going to acquire is colored in yellow. So we're going to acquire a 3-meter right of way from the northeast corner of BC Hydro's property, paralleling the northern property line of BC Hydro. Then it stops here at the northwest corner. So from there, we either have to go onto the Royal Oak Shopping Center's property in the future, or somehow we have to acquire the right of way where this last single-family house is to complete that connection to Viewmont. So under the present arrangement, BC Hydro is only going to grant us the right of way along the northerly property line, and it's going to stop here. So in the future, we'll have to negotiate, like I said, with the Royal Oak Shopping Center owners or the single-family dwelling owner to extend that pathway to Viewmont.
Any more questions for the applicant before I ask them to sit down? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to council for a decision. If the council would like to move this forward, I would ask for a motion to discharge the existing land use contract and rezone. Councilor German?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move that the existing land use contract be discharged.
I'll call the question on that. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. I will also move number 2, that the application to rezone from M2 wholesale, etc. Be approved.
Moved and seconded. Councilor Plant, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious, Mr. Mayor, how we can ensure what our engineering director tonight has suggested occurs, how we can put that in. That, I mean, putting up four-way signs on private property is as part of the development, and yet we're just assuming that's going to be discussed and going to happen. So is there a way to put in a recommendation that they have a conversation, or is it just, no, obviously not, I'm being somewhat facetious, but how do we ensure that that happens so that we don't have the surprises coming back to us in the future?
I would ask our planner to weigh in on this. We've already heard from the engineer that it's outside of our realm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it is outside of our realm, in fact, it is on the adjacent property, so it could not apply to the development permit of this site. It's certainly something that would have to be between the two property owners. We can't, at this point, force that to happen. The Royal Oak Shopping Center, certainly we can follow up with the applicant and the owner to see how those conversations go.
Please do that.
Okay, if there's no further questions to advance this, I'd like to have someone move a second reading of bylaw number 9363. Another question?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Councilor German.
I don't think we voted on first reading yet, but anyhow, I just want to make a comment. I'm moving this because this is a substantially improvement, results in a substantial improvement to the yard, and I think to the surrounding area, to the neighborhood, and that should take place. I do want to still express some disappointment that Hydro has not undertaken to do anything leading in terms of moving